Hello and welcome to Ikon Park, where the practice matches ahead of the 2021 season continue today with Carlton against Essendon. I am Riley Beveridge and I'm joined for this one by my esteemed colleague Cal Toomey. Cal, how you going?
Good, Riley. Pleasure to be here. Beautiful day at Ikon Park and looking forward to these two sides hit it out today. Obviously, famous rivals. Not much of a crowd today, but we look forward to bringing the game to Essendon and Carlton members throughout the afternoon and morning. Season and pre-season, so up he comes against Mark Pittonet.
It's been an interesting battle, this one, in the ruck. The Blues don't have much ruck depth. Of course, Tom de Koning going down with a back injury. Levi Casbolt misses today with a jarred knee. So Pittonet is really their only one. It's interesting because Callum Moore has been doing ruck work in the scratch matches last year when he was on the list. But Oscar McDonald took a few ruck stoppages in the practice before the game as the Blues go forward. Looks like a free kick against Jack Silvani. Now, I want to highlight a player from each team going into this. I was charged with doing Carlton today, and Jack Silvani was actually my one that I wanted to spotlight because only 3 games last year, missed with a knee injury. Of course, he also broke his ribs and had a bit of a bruised lung from that incident with Zach Merritt, which earned Merritt a suspension earlier in the season. But restricted to 3 games last year. But I think there's a real spot for him in the forward line at Carlton, particularly early in the season. So you look at Charlie Curnow, who's down. Levi Casbolt's got that jarred knee. We've spoken about Tom de Koning, who also misses today. And so does Mitch McGovern, who's got a bit of a hamstring injury. So, I mean, look, you've got Harry McKay down there, but I think Carlton needs a second marking option. It was interesting a couple of weeks ago. We were out here at Ikon Park and we watched Carlton's intra-club game, and Jack Silvani, that seemed like they played a strong team against a weaker side. He started the game on the weaker side, but kicked a couple of goals. So I'd expect him, if he can take his opportunity to hit the scoreboard today, to be one that he'd be looking to press his playing for round 1.
Well, someone who's already been in the action just earlier there is Cole Langford, and I think Essendon supporters are really excited to see his development across this year. Last year was his breakout season, playing through the midfield. He can go forward as well, but yeah, as a taller midfield, there's definitely a spot there for him to make his place within the competition, and certainly the Bombers will be hoping for that this year. See a free kick here going to the Blues, and Jack Martin is another player who finished or started last year on fire, didn't he? That was basically his first game for the Blues, and it was his best game for the Blues so far.
Kicking 4 goals against Richmond in that season opener. He's one that in the inter-club a couple of weeks back had some midfield time, which I was really excited to see. So I spent a bit of the time playing in the centre bounce. Did drift forward as well and kicked a couple of goals. So starts forward today and he's pretty composed finisher, and he puts that one through. So the Blues get the first goal of the evening, of the afternoon I should say actually. But
what do they do with Jack Martin this year in terms of his position, and what did you take out of his first season at the footy club?
I think he's one of those players that, as I mentioned before, he can do both. And I think we'll see a lot of that playing that high half forward role. I mean, Zach Fisher's another one who's been touted as playing as a small forward exclusively this year, but I'd be shocked if he didn't have a few midfield bursts at stages this season. We see down there now Mark Murphy starting in the forward line, Lockie Fogarty, another one they've brought in from Geelong that we didn't speak about before the game this off-season. He's starting as a small forward as well, but I spoke to David Teague earlier this month, and he said that Fogarty was one that's been training predominantly with the midfield group this year. So I think Carlton really wants these smaller types in their midfield group to be able to have the flexibility to do a bit of both and push forward on occasion as well.
You see the follow-up there from Sam Draper, and that's the most exciting thing I think about him from an Essendon perspective, is that it's not just the ruck work, it's the around the ground work. And last year coming into that senior side, he's still such a baby in terms of ruck terms. He comes off that ACL injury and really stamps his claims as the #1 ruckman at that footy club. Now Tom Bellchambers is now in the ruck department coaching route, so he's off the list, but clearly still having a really close tie with Sam Draper, and I'd expect him to take his game on leaps and bounds this year.
I'll tell you what, if the Blues and the Bombers have a few ruck issues this year, Bellchambers and Cruz are both the respective ruck coaches. They could almost step straight in, couldn't they?
They could.
Is there anyone you're expecting to get? We've spoken about the Blues potentially graduating a few through the midfield at stages this year. Is anyone expecting you to do that at the Bombers?
A good ball movement here, and ends up with a goal for Peter Wright. That was great dash there from Devon Smith. And the exciting thing there from the Bombers' perspective is seeing that running carry from Devon Smith, and it probably wasn't there last year at different stages. We know what an impact he had in his first season with the Bombers when he won the best and fairest at the club coming over from GWS. The year following, he had some season-ending knee surgery. Probably still feeling the effects from that at stages last year, despite playing most of the season. So just getting that running carry off half back and the pass over the top to Anthony McDonald to Dinwiddie, who handballed to Peter Wright. Now, Peter Wright obviously is filling a hole that Essendon need to be filled, the key forward stocks, and there are high hopes for him. He's averaged more than a goal a game throughout his AFL career so far. Didn't play a game last year, though, for Gold Coast, so was pushed out of that lineup, but comes to the footy club refreshed, and he's such a beautiful kick, Riley. So when he gets his opportunities, he generally converts them. So there will be a fair few hopes and expectations upon him in the forward line, and yeah, he's up to it this year, I think.
We've had numerous chats about who kicks the goals this year, and there's a few keepers who runs at either end of the field. There's Paddy Dow, who started in the midfield in that centre bounce, which is, I think, something Blues fans have wanted to see for quite a long time. Paddy Dow starting through there. He's put a lot of upper body weight on in particular. It's funny, actually, going into the 2020 season, prior to the year, Paddy told me that he looked to lose weight to improve his running power. He's put that weight back on now, so he's got a bit of upper body strength to be able to break tackles and win contested ball out of the middle. So that's going to be a fascinating development to see if he can improve this year, because he's in his 4th year in the senior system. So this is the year that clubs always tell us they're looking for players to take that jump. The Bombers again move the ball pretty fluidly from their back half. Matt Guelphy with the bleached hair.
It was team photo day this week at the footy club, so I'm not sure if that's...
it looks like a fresh bleach as well, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
He was practicing pre-game with the midfield group along with Braden Ham. Are they two that you're expecting to go through there more often this year?
Yeah, I mean, Braden Ham has a wing option there up for grabs, and that's a spot that Essendon need to fill. So he's one, and also Matt Guelphy's a really versatile player who can play across half-back, even sometimes as a pinch hit forward. So I do like the fact that Guelphy brings some versatility to his game and offers Ben Rutten, the coach at Essendon, some options.
Blues fans would have liked to see a couple of bounces from Harry McKay, but not necessarily the kick going inside 50. An opportunity here. And here is Lockie Fogarty, the new recruit from Geelong, who just can't bring that one before.
I was a big fan of Lockie Fogarty coming through his draft year, and it was because of that ability to play as a high half forward, push into the midfield. His hands are really clean. Just unfortunately got squeezed out of opportunity at Geelong, didn't he? So I think it's a really crafty pick-up for the Blues, and there was a couple of small forwards up for grabs last year. There was Fogarty, there was Jack Higgins. In the end, they targeted Fogarty and made that deal happen, and yeah, I think there's some opportunity for him at the Blues to make one of those small forward/midfield roles one of his own.
Found it interesting there as Carlton goes inside 50 again. Big fly from Francis, tell you what. Patrick Cripps moving forward. I think you'll see that a few times this year, but he can't snap around the body. You were out at Whitten Oval yesterday, Cal, and I just saw then Patrick Cripps manning the mark and very careful not to move. How many 50-metre penalties for the manning the marker were there?
Just the one yesterday, Riley, and it was late in the game. So the players adapted really, really well, exceptionally well, really, to this new rule that has been brought in by the AFL to create greater flow and movement and ball movement and allow the game to speed up. So it may look like an insignificant rule when you can't just move on the mark, but it did definitely create some opportunities for both sides yesterday, and the players adapted really well. There was only 1 point. It was Marcus Bontempelli late in the game. So from what the first impression of that rule suggested, that it would be a success. Obviously a long way to go, and clubs will work out ways to manipulate it a little bit, but even so far today, the players have been pretty smart and sharp on the mark.
It's interesting that James Stewart playing on Harry McKay. Is that something that was tipped in pre-season that Stewart had spent a bit of time back this year?
Yeah, he has. He spent most of the summer playing as a key defender, and that's a role that he took on late last year. He obviously played a game against Port Adelaide, matched up against Charlie Dixon playing as a key defender. So he's been groomed into that role, and his physicality, his athleticism, his height, he's a good kick. So they like that out of what James Stewart brings.
Opportunity here for the Blues. Harry McKay is going to have to collect it, but the boundary line beats him to it. It'll be a throw in about 30 metres away from goal.
Should we talk a little bit about who's missing today?
We should. We should, definitely.
There's a few names who aren't out there for Essendon supporters who are watching on. Andrew McGrath is missing under the concussion protocol, so he had a knock at training last week, so he's unavailable today, but is aiming to play in the Amy Community Series next week. David Zarakis coming back from his knee injury, still recovering from that. Michael Hurley, who we hope is going well with that hip infection. Obviously,
sounds nasty, doesn't
it? So no timeline on when Hurley will be available for the Bombers, but hopefully back at the club soon. Irving Mosquito with his knee. Jake Stringer with his Achilles issues across summer isn't out there today. Mason Redmond, Patrick Ambrose with his foot injury, and Dylan Clark with his ankle are among the casualties there.
The Blues got Mitch McGovern out with a hamstring problem. Tom de Koning's obviously got that back injury, but we're hearing that de Koning's actually tracking well from that and could be fit again early in the season to challenge Mark Pittonet in the ruck. Brodie Kemp's got a syndesmosis problem, not expected out there for another 3 months or so. Eddie Betts has got a calf issue. Caleb Marchbank also dealing with a calf issue. He'll miss round 1. It's been a horror run for Caleb Marchbank, hasn't it?
It has been. It has been. He's struggled to get a real consistent go at it. It was interesting there, a little bit of friendly fire or ex-friendly fire from Adam Saad against Devon Smith, who Devon Smith's clearly an agitator, and that's part of what he brings to the Bombers lineup, and currently matched up against Saad. Smith was previously a part of the Bombers leadership group. They've refined that group for this year, so not a part of it for 2021, but he'll be hoping to get back to his best this season in his 4th year for the Bombers.
And just finishing off the Carlton injury list, Nick Newman's got a bit of knee inflammation. He won't be fit for round 1 either. Charlie Curnow's got another knee setback, which we all know about. He'll miss the first half of the year. Sam Philp, a first-round pick from last year, he's got a hip flexor issue, minor one there. Levi Casbolt's got a jarred knee, but the Blues are expecting him back potentially for next week's Amy Community Series game against St Kilda. If not, they're very confident that he will be fit for round 1 against Richmond. The Bombers, again, they're moving the ball quite well for the midfield. I know it broke down there, but there has to be exciting signs early for Bombers fans seeing that movement. This is Adam Saad, nice little sidestep. This is what the Blues would be looking for with Adam Saad coming into the club this year. And a good kick forward. Jack Silvani just can't take the mark.
And that is Saad's bread and butter, isn't it? The couple of quick steps, the run and carry, and the long kick. So he's an 80-metre player in a couple of seconds. And obviously the Blues probably haven't had that quite dynamic speed off halfback. You know, Samo Petrevski-Seton's a beautiful user and really smart decision maker in that area of the ground, but probably doesn't have the same takeoff speed that Adam Saad does. Very few do.
No.
But he clearly is a player that I think both clubs would like to have out there today, but obviously made the move to the Blues last year, and the Bombers picked up a really nice pick in the draft for him.
They did, which is why they've managed to get the likes of Nick Cox and Archie Perkins out there today. Zach Reed, the other of those top 10 picks, not out there today. There's a few faces that were named last night that aren't out there at the moment. For the Blues, Liam Stocker, Michael Gibbons, Oscar McDonald and Callum Moore are all expected just for the second half today.
So the secondary rucks in the position here, and that's also what Peter Wright will be hoping to bring to the Bombers lineup coming up against Callum Moore. Do you see Moore as a ruck option? He's played all over the ground in his career so far at Richmond and also the Blues as a key defender, an athletic tall. I think he came into the competition as a forward option too.
Yeah, look, he played ruck in the scratch matches last year. I know you can't really glean much from them given how sort of unusual they were and the amount of players that were playing, but played as that ruckman throughout all of the scratch matches virtually for Carlton last season. I'd think of the 4 that are currently training with the Blues. So there's Oscar McDonald. They've also got Xavier Marr, who's a youngster that missed out in the draft last year, and Ben Crocker was added earlier this week as a train-on player. I think Cal Moore, simply for the fact that he's been there for a year now and he does have that versatility, he'd be leading in the race. That's a very strong grab leading out there from...
And that's Waterman.
Is that Waterman? It is.
Yep.
Of course, just 2 games for West Coast, and he's going to get 50.
He's on West Coast's lists. Yeah, he obviously his career at the Eagles was cut short by illness and didn't quite make the most of that first opportunity through circumstances, but this is his second go at it, and last year as a medium forward playing in the Waffle competition was a star, and clearly we saw from that strong mark on the lead there that he's a player who knows his way around goal and can shoot his opportunities. So a great result for him. There were 3 players training with the Bombers as part of their sign-on period. The other 2 have been cut, so clearly the Bombers view Waterman as their best chance at this point, and they have up until March 9 to make a decision on him. But a great ball movement there from the Bombers too. And we saw Nick Hine get involved for the first time, a player who across to the Bombers late in last year's trade period. And when I say late, I think in the dying seconds. That
There's a lot of talk that one wasn't done at the end. And
Jai Caldwell can speak to that as well. I think he had to wait nervously. He got told his deal was going to be done late, Jai Caldwell, and then he said afterwards, Adrian Dodoro, I didn't think it was going to be done that late in the last minute or so. But Ikon from St Kilda, formerly of the Bombers VFL program,
yes.
So he clearly comes in as a player who will be hoping to replace some of the speed and run and carry that Saad and obviously the retired Connor McKenna have left behind too.
I like him off half-back as well. Spent a lot of his time at St Kilda forward of the ball, but I think half-back's probably where he finds his home with the Bombers long-term,
Yes.
isn't it?
No, definitely. And that's the view of the coaching panel as well. Sometimes that dazzling run and maybe it can be confusing sometimes as well for opposition players as well, and not sure exactly which way it's going to go, but you've got to back yourself and take a couple of bounces and really cut through the centre of the ground, and he can provide that.
It is quite unpredictable. Now, Zach Williams took the mark there to get that forward foray started. He's been playing forward as well. So I guess everyone, when he came to Carlton, sort of thought, where's he going to line up? Is he going to be on half-back? Is he going to go through the midfield? Well, he's actually playing through the midfield and across half-forward. So the Blues have identified that he's a player that can go forward and hit the scoreboard as Harry McKay wins a free kick, wheels around and kicks for goal. And that goal might be down to some work he did during the off-season. You wrote a very interesting article on afl.com.au early in the week, Cal, on Harry McKay. Can you take us through that and what he's been doing this summer to improve his accuracy in front of goal?
Yeah, it's been a bit of an issue for him, hasn't it, across his career, and he's done everything from the extra sessions of goal kicking, the refining the technique and getting all that underhand. But over this pre-season, he went and saw a sports psychologist about removing that fear of result and fear of outcome and really entering the goal-kicking process without the stress of it all. So, as he said, it's easier said than done throughout doing that in the pre-season when there's no crowd, there's no real results hanging on every kick, but he feels in his best spot as a goal kicker and someone who can really make the most of his opportunities. He gets so many, doesn't he, Riley? And I think this is the year that we will see the best of Harry McKay. There's been bits and pieces. This is his 6th year at AFL level. He hasn't had the fitness run at it, but yeah, we saw a practice game a couple of weeks ago in that intra-club and he kicked 5 and was everywhere. Yeah. So a really strong start from him today, matched up against James Stewart of the Bombers.
Cal Moore pretty involved early out of the ruck. Darcy Parish in that centre bounce stoppage as well. You must like seeing that because he was thrown around quite a fair bit last season at Essendon, but it's in the guts where he should be playing, isn't it?
I think that's where his best spot is. There is a rotation, obviously, in that Essendon midfield. Now they've brought in Caldwell as well, Dill Shield, who we haven't spoken about yet today. Dyson Helpel's moved back to a half-back flank. Zach Merritt's in that group as well. So Andy McGrath, when he gets back into the side, would be playing significant midfield time. But I feel like that's Darcy Parish's best position. I think that's always been his best position. The good thing about him is that when he does go forward, he can kick a goal. He kicked 11 goals a couple of years ago, which is a pretty reasonable outcome for a resting midfielder. But I think that is his best spot, and I hope that we see a bit more of him there throughout 2021 in his 6th year at AFL level. And he's approaching 100 games too, so he's in that sort of sweet spot of his career where the next 4 or 5 years should be his real best period.
Behind there for Matt Guelphy, it's the Blues by 2 points, nearing 18 minutes gone in this first quarter. Oh, Setterfield taking that kick out, which is interesting. Williams soccers it forward. Now Dyson Heppel gets the ball here across half-back. How do you see that working out for the captain this year across half-back?
Well, he was the star at last week's intra-club in that role. And clearly the Bombers are looking for a little bit of poise and decision-making out at that area of the ground and trust him with the ball in his hands. It's not unfamiliar to him, Riley, that spot. He burst onto the scene as a dreadlocked teenager back in 2011 and won the NAB AFL Rising Star, Bombers' first ever NAB AFL Rising Star winner, playing off half-back. So he has done it before at AFL level. A lot of time has passed since then when he's been an All-Australian midfielder, but I like the change, and I think that if their midfield's to grow and develop and get some of these young guys more inside time, that it's probably a good move for that.
Crucial contest here between Welfie and Jack Martin. No, Sam Petrevsky-Seaton, sorry.
Gets over the top, and we see Dill Shield there as well, and Anthony McDonald tipping Woody, who I think will be hoping for a more impactful season throughout 2021. And here's Nick Cox, who Bombers supporters will be very excited to see involved here. A beautiful kick of the footy.
So where does he go from the wing. He starts on the wing, but where does he rest? Because he did it across half-back last year. He did it across half-forward. Where does he rest, do you see?
I think if he's damaging, he's probably better as a key forward, given what's on Essendon's list. However, as a junior, he probably spent more time as a key back who could go forward rather than the other way around. But Essendon need a hard-working wingman. He's a player who runs the 2-kilometre time trial in 6 minutes. He runs the 20-metre sprint in 2.95 seconds, so he's an athletic beast. That one, just as I've pumped up his kicking.
It's not even going to go out for a throw-in.
He's let me down there, Nick. But that certainly is an area of game that's a strength. He's, I think, speaking to recruiters last year as well, his kicking on both feet for a player his size is pretty unheralded, and uncommon. I think we'll see a bit of him in 2021 at senior level.
Peter Wright in the ruck there, down to Anthony McDonald, Tevin Woody. Just to tell you what, Mal Grafwy's been everywhere in this first quarter, hasn't he?
He's been really good. And he's been a player who's, over the period of time he's been at the footy club, wanted to grow and become more than just a role player. I think I've spoken to him about that a couple of times, and he sees his career as being, more than just that, more than just the stopper. And if he's given the responsibility to flourish, then maybe this is the year that he really takes it.
Sam Petrevski-Seton getting in the way of that one. And Wiedering cleaning up after winning the Carlton Best and Fairest last Friday night. Prolonged Best and Fairest due to COVID restrictions, but they eventually got there, and Jacob Wiedering, unsurprisingly and quite deservingly, claiming his first Carlton BNF.
A fair result?
Yes, definitely. He was outstanding last year, All-Australian squad for the first time, and I think we'll just see him grow on that now. I mean, there were so many queries about whether he'd reach this level in his second and third year, but it was a really breakout season for him. That's Cox going inside 50 looking for Shield. One on from Adam Saad, and he gets the follow-up as well.
Was good clearance. Straight into the lap of Kyle Langford.
And that kick should be cut off, and nearly is. Didn't see who did that, but Pittonet gets dragged down.
It was Williamson there from the Blues.
It was.
He was an interesting player in himself, isn't he, with his versatility, playing on the wing. He's been spending a bit of time across the pre-season, training a bit more up the ground.
He has been. I think that's because the Blues have such an abundance of halfbacks that can step in. We've seen Samo Petrevski-Seton do it over the last couple of years. There's obviously Sam Doherty. Nick Newman was set to return as Peter Wright takes this and will kick from about 55 metres out. But yeah, they've got heaps of them. Lockie Plowman can do it. We still haven't seen Caleb Marchbank for almost 18 months now, but they've got an abundance of halfbacks. So getting players like Tom Williamson up the ground and ensuring that he can have an impact higher up the field will mean that he's just got that other string to his bow, which will keep him in the side long term. So Peter Wright walks in from 55. It probably won't make the distance, but Draper's there. Can't mark. And the Blues will clear through Saad. It's a risky kick, but an okay one in the end.
Ned Carl with the handball there to Caldwell. A couple of faces who the Bombers coaching panel will be pinning some hopes on this year.
Got a bit of swagger to him, Ned Carl, doesn't he? As he takes this mark and will kick from about 50 metres out, trying to give the Bombers the lead back. But
there's obviously a bit of a breeze going the left of screen. So this will be a tough kick. We've seen a couple fall short over the past couple of minutes as he goes for the pass to Carl Hooker and gets chopped off by Will Setterfield. Ned Carl playing off half back this year. So last year...
How will he go with that? Because he loves a goal.
He did a little shimmy, didn't he? A little bit of a dance last year after his first goal at AFL level. But I think the Bombers have opened up a couple of spots for him and said, well, there's some vacancies and we like your smarts, we like your creativity with the ball, you're a good user. How about we move it to half back and see what we can do there? So they've been pretty impressed with what he can do. And also he's an excellent runner. So he can run and carry with the footy and he's pretty smart with his decisions. So we wait and see how he goes in that new role for Ned Carl.
Strong mark from Fogarty, but kicks chopped off by Aaron Francis, who gets there ahead of Pittonet and takes a strong mark himself. Developed quite nicely across half-back, hasn't he, Aaron Francis, over the last couple of years?
That's the best spot for him. We saw some real flashes of his brilliance towards the end of 2019, including a huge grab late in the year. I think that's his spot at AFL level. Probably a little bit interrupted last year, but he'll be hoping this is the year that he really can piece together a full season and show everyone his huge talent, because he's got it.
Saad's kick inside 50, can't find a target, but Essendon able to clear through that man, Ikon, that we spoke about before. and Guelphy, who
Yeah,
seems to have it on a string at the moment.
He turned on the Jets there, Hind, didn't he?
He did.
And just left a few in his wake. And the Bombers would be wanting him to recreate a little bit of that speed and just drive out of that area of the ground. And clearly Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuiti's had a good summer too, because he's been lightning today.
That is a nice steadying kick as well into the path of Big Harry Jones.
Yeah, a player we haven't spoken about yet, but was always going to come into discussion and conversation, because this is a new look Essendon forward line, and if you're pinning someone in for the AFL fantasy coaches at home, I know there's plenty amongst the Essendon and Carlton membership bases who are tuning into this coverage. He'd be a good shot for round one to debut. I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't debut and play as centre half forward in that round one team against the Hawks. Had last year under his belt at the footy club. Didn't debut with some injury issues, but as we see here, he's a beautiful kick and a player who really converts his opportunities. He did that at under 18 level. He was the Bombers' first pick in that 2019 draft, and yeah, he looks like a player who's built up his size. He's got a great tank, and he's got some forward awareness too, Riley. So I just like his leading patterns, and if he can continue that and continue to work in partnership with Peter Wright, then, as we said, it's a new look forward group, and the speed that Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuiti showed there to pass it to him and create some space, really. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Harry Jones, and I think Ben Rutten has spoken a fair bit about his hopes for some of the younger players, and Harry Jones is a big part of that.
Played both ends as a junior, but it's forward where you see him maturing at the next level.
Yeah, I think so. There's a need for him forward, and it's where his best footy has come and been played. So yeah, I think that's his spot, particularly given where Essendon's list is at and some of the departures in recent years on the forward group.
Lockie Fogarty starting that centre bounce in the midfield for the Blues, but Jai Caldwell wins the free kick and drives Essendon inside 50 yet again, but Liam Jones chops it off. You'd have to be pretty impressed. We're through just about one quarter here at Ikon Park. Bombers by 4 points. If you are an Essendon fan, the glimpses that you've seen from Peter Wright and then from Harry Jones, and I know he's not on the list yet, but even Alec Waterman, when given his opportunity, took a strong mark and finished off as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that forward group's worked really well together. McDonald-Tipungwuiti so far has been busy. Guelphy's been busier. So there's ground level players who are contributing and setting up the taller players, and it's a work in progress, this forward group, and I think everyone understands that with some of the changes that have happened over the past couple of years. Orazio Fantasia leaves the club to join Port Adelaide. Such a star for the Bombers over a couple of years. Joe Danaher, we know, hasn't played significant footy for a period of time, but still leaves a big hole as an All-Australian and former best and fairest. So there is some exciting talent coming through.
Speaking of exciting, the Blues fans would be liking what Paddy Dow's been able to deliver so far. He's had a couple of clearances out of the midfield, playing predominantly mid. Drifts forward there, takes a strong mark, and will have a shot at goal. This is the area of Paddy Dow's game where he probably needs to improve his disposal on either foot. He gets his opportunity now in front of goal to put the Blues back in front on the stroke of quarter time. He's had a very good summer, Paddy Dow. I'm hearing good things, and the Blues fans have reason to be excited, and I think that's why. The goal umpire doesn't move. Paddy Dow puts it through, and Carlton back in front on the eve of the first change. They lead by 2 points here at Ikon Park as Paddy Dow jogs from the field. He's been one of the more impressive players for the Blues in this first quarter.
He has been, and we see a body shape change about him too, don't we? And as he enters this season, a high pick from the 2017 draft, he's probably been frustrated by some of the form and injury that he had over the past 12 months. Only played 3 games last year, didn't he? Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's a huge talent, and I've always loved his power, his explosiveness. As you said there, he's focused a lot on his finishing and tidying that up a little bit, but the signs in that set shot, and we know it's just one kick, but there's a real technique and action to it, and I think that Paddy Dow, if he can really jump up a level or two in development this year, would bring something really new, and yeah, as I said, dynamic and powerful to that Carlton midfield. I'm a big fan of Paddy Dow, and I think that he's got what it takes. It's just about putting it all together. Yeah,
that bigger frame is so important. He's just probably got knocked off the ball a little bit too easy at senior level in the past, but now that he's got that upper body weight under his belt, could be a very important year for Paddy Dow. And everyone talks about Carlton's growth from external recruiting. They bring in Zach Williams and Adam Saad over the off-season, but if they can get some natural development from those first-round picks who haven't necessarily had an impact on senior level, guys like Dow and Lockie O'Brien, Sam Philp, they'll get Brody Kemp back at some stage this year, Liam Stocker. If those guys can come on, they'll be just like new signings for the Blues. Pardon the cliche, but it is the case, and that's what they'll be hoping for this year. They could be huge for Carlton's development and their push for finals footy this year.
It's about confidence sometimes too, isn't it? And Dow probably didn't have it at any stage last year. When he entered the side, there was an expectation on his performance. When he didn't perform to those sort of levels, the expectation comes again where he's holding his spot in the side. So I think if you have a fit pre-season, as we speak to players every year, don't we, Riley, about the confidence that continuity brings?
Yep.
And clearly he's had that this year.
So important. Sam Draper in the ruck against Pittonet has been getting in front of the contest to virtually everything in this first quarter. Bombers are moving the ball nicely out of the back line. They haven't necessarily always had this final kick to the leading forward, but you'd have to be impressed with the way they're moving the ball. As Archie Perkins grabs it and walks around.
Oh, very nice.
Sam Doherty, that's what Essendon fans would be hoping to see, but the kick, siren just beats Harry Jones.
I think there was enough in one glimpse of footy there to keep Essendon supporters tuning in for the second quarter, because that was some slick work from Archie Perkins and hasn't been on the ground a whole lot in that first term, but yeah, a shimmy, a duck and weave, and a nice pass to Harry Jones on the lead.
Slick is a very nice way of describing it. So at quarter time here at Ikon Park, Carlton with a slender 2-point lead, 3-3-21 to 3-1-19. They were kicking with a slight breeze.
At least the early part of this year. So all members will have the first opportunity to get tickets to Bombers homes games, with reserved seat members given priority access. So if you want to get to games and bring along your family and friends, make sure everyone dons the sash in 2021 and signs up for a membership.
Zach Williams putting his head over the footy. He nearly got himself in trouble at an intra-club game a couple of weeks ago, Zach Williams, when he just bounced off Paddy Dow, who stood up really well in a tackle. And you could just... I put something on my Twitter about the impact of that hit, but you could see his jaw almost fly back. He was off the ground, got a concussion test.
We heard it.
Had about 10 minutes. Yeah, it made that real slapping sound, but had about 10 minutes with the trainers as well. So it just goes to show he's not afraid to put his head over the footy, even though he is light of frame. He's actually probably bigger than what you might expect from an upper body perspective, as he rumbles into another contest there, but he's tackled by Essendon's captain, Dyson Heppel. He's got a big frame and he can win the contested ball as well as use his speed on the outside, can't he?
It's a small sample period of him playing as an inside midfielder, isn't it? We know him best as a dashing half-back, but it's obviously enough to have suggested to the Blues that this guy is part of our future in the midfield, and is a different dynamic part of that group as well. I think everyone looks at what the Carlton Footy Club's built over the past couple of years and really impressed with the players who've been brought in. And there was, obviously they pulled the trigger on the free agency and trade market last year on the back of Jack Martin the previous season. So they're in a strong position. They'll be looking to break that Carlton finals drought. Last time was 2013 when they obviously replaced the Bombers in that final series. So it will be one to watch how they go this year, given the experience they've brought in.
Cripps has kicked just over the head of McKay, but Dyson Heppel tripped at a pretty inopportune moment and he's run down by one of our personal favourites in the commentary box, Zach Fisher. It was a nice tackle from the young man who's playing forward this year, and everything you hear out of Carlton is that he's just lighting it up at the moment as a small forward. Yeah,
and we saw that last year in the second half of the season, didn't we? And it's his skills, it's his tenacity, as we saw there with the tackle. And he dobs this one pretty comfortably, as he would expect it to be doing from that part of the ground. But look, he's going to play as a permanent full small forward, isn't he? So that's a new position for him in some respects. He's spent the past couple of summers playing as a midfielder and training up in that part of the ground, but this season has been purely as a small forward. He's got the craft with his kicking, and having watched him train as well, he can do some pretty uncanny things from different parts of inside 50, and he's sharp with his ball disposal. So kicked 4 goals in that first game back last year against West Coast. And obviously missed a fair proportion of the season too, having suffered a syndesmosis injury in round 1 last year against the Tigers. So spent a fair bit of his shutdown period getting over that. But yeah, he's got the ability to break a game open, and looking forward to seeing him play as a permanent small forward at the feet of Harry McKay throughout this year. Dyson
Heppel was a man that was run down there. We did speak about him a bit in the first half, but what's his biggest asset across half-back is Paddy Dow grabs the ball, a couple of nice side steps, and just a fend off on Zach Merritt. That's what we were talking about with Paddy Dow being able to use that explosive breakaway speed. Getting back to Dyson Hempel, what's his biggest asset across half-back? Is his composure, his kicking abilities?
It's probably the composure and calm head. I know in that moment it wasn't there, and he did sort of fall over himself with a few options not becoming available to him, but it would be that part of it. And look, he's coming back to grips with that role as well, isn't he? It's I know I mentioned before, it's been a decade since he played in that position, really. So he'll be given some time to ease into it, but there certainly will be some new positions across the board at AFL level this year. And we saw Mark Murphy with the handball there. He's been spending a bit more time forward, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think that's where we'll see Mark Murphy for the majority of the campaign. That's a lovely kick to Mark Pittonet as well. Just that spearing ball. He's probably Carlton's best user on the run in space, Mark Murphy. His ability to lower the eyes and find leading targets. So I think that's what Carlton wants, is that high forward option. And this is important for the Blues, that a ruck option can go forward and hit the scoreboard, because I think it was what everyone was really excited about when Matthew Cruiser first broke onto the scene in about 2007, but they haven't had too many goals from ruck recently, as Mark Pittonet puts that through and extends Carlton's lead to 14 points, the biggest advantage of the afternoon. So that's really important, that a ruckman can go forward, and especially when you've got guys like Curnow and McGovern and DeConing and Casbolt who are out injured at the moment, to have that secondary option that can go forward and hit the scoreboard.
He hasn't actually kicked a goal at AFL level yet. So I'd be hoping from his perspective, and I'm sure he would be, he'd be playing on his mind. He might even count that one. He might be getting desperate to put one through. But look, 20 games at AFL level so far, obviously come across from the Hawks. I thought he was really good last year.
Yep.
13 games and made that number one spot his own. And to be honest, there wasn't a huge rush to get back Cruiser at that later point of the year, was there? As he was battling those injuries, because, you know, Pittonet was holding on to that mantle really well. So, yeah, as you say, push forward in that instance, and some good work by Mark Murphy too to square it up to him.
Some exciting signs there for Carlton as Draper puts it down Darcy Parish's throat, and they go forward, and it's a free kick to the Blues. I think it was Harry Jones who might have just had a bit of a push out behind the contest, unless they gave it to Peter Wright, against Peter Wright for shepherding.
Nice clearance though from Parish out of the middle, and again, I think when he's in there, a couple of years ago, the numbers suggested that when he was playing as a inside the square midfielder, Essendon's clearances were as best as they got out of the centre. So that has been, I guess, a challenge for the Bombers over a couple of years to work out their best inside the centre square group, whether it's Shield or Merritt, where McGrath fits in. You know, these three players are all, if you do McGrath, Parish and Merritt, they're three of the smaller sort of midfield types. So I think Kyle Langford in there too to complement what they bring in. Caldwell's a bit in between, but has real strength and power. And yeah, I think they're building a wider net of midfielders to be able to compete with some of the better sides now.
Here is Caldwell and Parish linking up for the Bombers around the corner kick, which Sam Doherty will chop off quite nicely.
We haven't spoken much about him. He's obviously had a challenging off-season, but it's good to see him out there.
Yeah, he's fully recovered from the ankle surgery that he underwent earlier in the summer, which is good to see. And a really strong year last year of halfback, coming back from successive ACL injuries, which kept him out of the game for 2 straight years. So he slots into that position perfectly. He's the ultimate professional, Sam Doherty, the co-captain. Sam Walsh delivers the Blues inside 50. McKay just can't mark, and the ball will be taken.
You mentioned
over the line.
ultimate professionals. Lucky enough to spend a week embedded with the Blues last year in the hub up in Queensland, and something that did take my eye was Sam Doherty's leadership ability and his ability to get around to all parts of the group and club, and his messaging. He spent a lot of time on his craft. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes down the coaching path in the future.
Did a bit of coaching work when he was actually sidelined for those 2 years. He was the Carlton's bench man. So Brendan Bolton and David Teague were both in charge across those 2 years. He acted as the liaison from the coaching box down to the players on the bench. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's got a role in a coach's box waiting for him after his playing days conclude. The interesting thing with Sam Doherty is before that season where he first got injured, which was 2017, where he won All-Australian honours, the last 4 or 5 games of that year, he actually spent playing predominantly through the midfield and attended a lot of centre bounces in that time. I think it was a role that Carlton was grooming him for. So whether or not he still has the aerobic capacity to do that as Murphy handballs to Fisher, who gets the ball across to Cunningham, and he walks it through for a goal. So the Blues have got 3 on the trot to start this second quarter, and they extend their lead to 20 points. But yeah, just whether or not Sam Doherty has that ability to go through the midfield again is probably just something to keep an eye on this year, because he obviously stepped back into life pretty comfortably across half-back again last year, but we'll see what the future holds for him.
The Blues have got on top of the Bombers here. The Bombers struggling to get it out of their back half at the moment with quite as much ease as they probably did in the first quarter. So we've seen some smaller types get involved for the Blues. We've seen Fisher a couple of times now with the goal assist. Mark Murphy involved there as well. So Bombers will need to tighten down on those guys to keep in touching distance. We know obviously it's the first hit out, so the result isn't the big main game of this contest, but obviously they'll be wanting to keep in touch and work on, I guess, what was put out there in that first term, because there were some really exciting signs at that point.
David Cunningham's going to be an interesting prospect this year. Probably played his best game of his career against Essendon in round 3 last year in that slender win for the Blues as a midfielder, but he's another one that David Teague's mentioned this summer. We'll be doing a bit of both in 2021, playing both through the midfield and as that high half forward as well, as Merritt looks to spread from the stoppage. Dylan Shear with a pretty sharp haircut. Handballs across to Parrish, who's got plenty of footy this quarter and just steadies it up to Ham.
We saw
about 51.
Clearly a lot of Essendon's hopes will be shouldered by those 3 players in the midfield there. It's Merritt, over to Shield, over to Parrish. Zach Merritt's a star, and I think he's probably Essendon's best player. He's so consistent. He's missed 10 games since debuting in 2013. He's a really durable option and someone who can break a game open, and that's a really good kick from Braden Ham.
Just creeps over the line, so the Bombers finally get their first of the second term, reducing the margin back to 14 points. But that's a lovely kick from Braden Ham, one that we spoke about before, whether or not he can have a bit of a run on ball this year and sort of use that outside run and drift forward on occasion where he managed to kick that goal.
He's a link-up player for mine, and a really good one when he's got the ball in his hands. The left footer that we saw just there, and a penetrating kick. He played 10 games last year, which was double his take of 5 the previous season in his debut year. So another player who I think will be sensing an opportunity to fill a spot. You know, there's a wing role up for grabs, there's a half-forward role up for grabs, and he's been busy today. So added a little bit more size to his frame, which is also a good sign.
So we've seen Cal Moore go through the ruck, and now here's Oscar McDonald for his first run of the day for the Blues, one of their train-on players looking to nab that final spot on Carlton's list via the pre-season supplemental selection period. So he's in the ruck. He's played a fair bit of footy for Melbourne across the years, but probably not much footy in the ruck, mostly down back. Had a really good season in that year that Melbourne made the preliminary final in 2018 as Liam Jones steps across and takes a really strong mark.
Couple of old warriors there in front of each other, aren't there? Jones and Hooker battling it out in that spot. We see Hooker playing forward. It's the age-old question, isn't it? The chicken or the egg?
How many times do you reckon you've had this debate, Cal?
Which end of the ground will Cale Hooker play at? He's another player, obviously, in the latter stages of his career, but it might depend on what comes through.
Oh, it's Fish hits the...
In terms of...
Fish hits the post, but it's a free kick.
Being awarded a push in the back. It might come down to what actually happens at either end in terms of the younger players and the younger key position players as well. So Fisher feigning to pass this, but I think he probably wants to go for the shot. And you'd expect he finishes this one well.
It's an interesting kick for a left footer, though. And he's going to use his right as I say that. And he's going to hit the post again. So he hit the post when he was pushed, and then he rolls around the right foot from the free kick and hits the post again.
That's a spot where, because of the redevelopment at the Carlton Footy Club going on at the moment, which viewers might be able to catch in different parts of the broadcast, the players have actually had to relocate their rooms over this summer, and around that area is where they actually basically leave the track. So they spend a lot of time kicking at goal from that spot, so you'll be a little bit disappointed to be missing that one from there.
Jack Silvani with another strong contest out in front of Jordan Ridley, who's got that match up today, although it looks like James Stewart might just be taking him from this contest as well. So where does Ridley go in 2021? Best and fairest winner last year at such a young age. How good can he be among the good intercept players in the competition?
I think last year he put himself right amongst that top group, and another year like last year probably propels him into the All-Australian team.
Yep.
It's a hard act to follow, but he's an exceptional talent, which we saw last year, and that's a huge fly.
Big fly.
From
Was
James
that
Stewart.
Stewart, was it?
Yeah, that was James Stewart. But yeah, Jordan Ridley, still only 22 years old. He won a best and fairest after playing 26 games throughout his career. Last year was the first real run at it in terms of coming in with good preparation. It's been a little bit interrupted this time around, though. He missed a few weeks with a calf injury across the pre-season, but obviously timed his run well enough to be ready to go for today's clash with the Blues.
Patrick Cripps taking that right contest for the Blues. Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody trying to get out the back and does.
Very clever.
It's a lovely tap on because Essendon have got numbers forward and he continues his run. If they can just get the ball out the back to him, which they can't. Although Adam Saad's given him another opportunity. And here is Devon Smith, nice little side step. And Harry Jones will look to take that, but can't.
He missed the shot there, Dev Smith, but I think the agile feet and the quick movement there is a really good sign for the Bombers. We've seen that a couple of times today as well, and he just looks...
Just didn't have that last year, did he?
No, that was missing in parts of his game for sure, and he got used across half-back late in the season. I still think his best spot is as a half-forward / midfield option and a tackling beast, which we know he can be. He's one of the competition's best at that, so... I think there's been some promising signs from him today.
Fisher out in front of Dyson Heppel, using those quick feet as he gets the ball forward. Harry McKay's flown it a couple today but hasn't marked. Can't mark that one either. Ball's fed out to Ed Curnow, who has Oscar McDonald on and uses him. Playing in the ruck today, Oscar McDonald, as he aims to nab that final list spot on Carlton's group. That's a very strong mark from Patrick Cripps. It's not paid though. Ball might have just hit the deck as Peter Wright dived in front of him.
A double whack here for Patrick Cripps.
Then get pinged for holding the footy.
Thought he probably held that long enough to be paid a mark. Maybe the umpire was obscured looking at that one inside the 50.
Peter Wright's a big man. Might have got his big frame in the way of the umpire's line of sight then.
The interesting thing about Patrick Cripps and that marking attempt is that we know he's spent a lot of this summer trying to build up his body, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's gone the other way in terms of his fitness program over this pre-season. Do you want to explain how they've rolled that one out?
Yeah, he's sort of obviously had a few injury issues last year with his knee and looked hobbled. He also had a shoulder injury, but he's gone back home to WA and done a lot of work just being the best he can be. He said he was trying to improve in too many areas, but he just wanted to make sure he knew what he was good at and go back to what he was good at and what made him such a great player across 2018 and 2019 and what saw him win 3 best and fairests for the club as Paddy Dow gets run down there. It's a really good tackle from Matt Guelphy, who's probably been Essendon's best, you'd have to say, so far.
He'd be right up there, absolutely, and continued his form from the first quarter.
Keep going forward now. They just can't seem to... The Bombers had that movement from their back half really down pat in that first quarter. Just can't seem to get it going. Can't seem to find that link-up kick at around this spot in the ground. High half-forward wing roll, can they?
A lot has been spoken from Ben Rutten across the pre-season around cohesion and getting to know teammates and getting to know the culture of the footy club. He's spent a lot of time and energy teaching the players about the club's history, the newcomers about the eras of success at the club, even down to the little things, and the imagery around the footy club has been a big focus for him as well. So building that cohesion takes time, and this is his first real season at the helm. We know that last year as the senior assistant coach, the succession plan was well and truly underway by now, that he was having a lot to do with the game plan and how the Bombers wanted to play. But until you're actually in the hot seat, you're not in the hot seat. And this year, I think, is the first year of his real development in that role and in that position. And this player, Cole Langford, will be a big part of that. And he has driven a lot around the culture, and I think internally he's viewed as a real leader on the rise. He didn't make the 4-man leadership group, which I was a little bit surprised about. I thought if it stretched out, he probably would have been pretty close to being within that. But I know that at the end of last year, he was pretty strong on how he viewed the future of this footy club and what they want to do next. So certainly he will be a player that the Bombers will be hoping to go forward on what he produced last year, because he was voted 4th in the best and fairest last year too. So that was his breakout campaign.
Nice little exciting passage leading to that shot on goal with Nick Hind, who was so pivotal to everything Essendon did in that first quarter. As the Blues, Adam Saad is not allowed to run on then.
just shows the man on the mark rule there in action, because Saad was able to get away, and in previous years, Braden Ham would have been able to corral him a certain way or a certain point of where he wanted him to kick to. But Saad, with that takeaway speed, was able to get away, and not being able to actually move beyond that spot allowed Saad to get away and get to the kick that he wanted to hit. So that's a really encouraging sign for the Blues on how they can take the best out of that rule and really advantage them. Yeah, and also great signs on the boundary line here at Ikon Park as Michael Hurley has re-engaged with the players at Essendon. They've spoken a lot about having not seen him for a couple of years, and a couple of weeks. He's been battling that hip infection, and he's just walking amongst the ground here, so getting some hugs from the players.
Yeah, everyone from the bench just went up and swarmed Michael Hurley then, which was really nice to see. He's making his way very slowly on crutches across the boundary line as Anthony McDonald, Tipungwuti adds a second straight for Essendon to reduce the margin to 7 points. But yeah, that was really nice to see, wasn't it? When he emerged from the rooms, all the players coming over to say hello to their old teammate who's been such an important figure for them for such a long time.
And a much loved figure too. He's a player who doesn't have to say a lot to be one of the most caring players at the footy club, and often people at Essendon speak about the love and empathy he has for his teammates. So good emotion there amongst the playing group
there
going over.
You can see all the players there just going over to say hello to their old teammate as he makes his way to the bench. Big smiles from him as well, because it sounds like a nasty injury, that infection, and it seems like he's had a rough deal over the last couple of weeks. So it's good to see him back out there and seeing his teammates again.
It was a nice finish from Anthony McDonald Tipungwuti, by the way.
Very nice, and he's got out the back a couple of times and looked quite dangerous as Will Setterfield gets that clearing kick. Spending a bit of time in the back half today, Will Setterfield as well. Spent a lot of time on the wing and pushing across half back to act as that intercept play, which he nearly does there. Adam Saad's getting on the footy a lot more in this quarter as well. Cuningham drives forward for the Blues. Can't get the ball out the back where Fisher was waiting for it. This is Jack Martin on the far side of the ground now for Carlton. They're just using the ball slowly up the wing. Is that Fisher looking for the entry kick inside 50 but can't find a man? Essendon starting to get a run on again in this game. They were out to a 20-point deficit, but the last 2 goals of the match has made it a lot closer than what it potentially could have been. Archie Perkins, he's got a nice sidestep, doesn't he? Saw that in the first quarter. Geez, he sidestepped no one there as well. He's using it every chance he gets.
It's funny for someone like Archie, who there's a good mark there by Cale Hooker after the Perkins pass. Someone like Archie Perkins, this is his first game of footy in 12 months. I remember watching his last one. It was down at Seaford. It was a Sandringham Dragons intra-club match, and he sidestepped a few that day too, Rolly. He was best on ground, and he didn't play again. And that's where prospects in Victoria will enter their AFL careers in very different spots to what South Australian and WA talents and prospects from New South Wales and Queensland may, because they have spent significant time without a game of footy. So Hooker misses that kick. It was from a tough angle, but I think the signs from Perkins just flashes. And you only look for snippets, and that's the exciting things about these games. You only need to look for snippets from first-time players and first-game players, and we see the Perkins sidestep. He gets it back here, and Cox and him waxing with the ball, and then he passed it into Hooker, who took the strong grab. I think that's a really good sign for the Bombers that he's coming to grips with the tempo of the game.
Yeah, you're not in these games. You're not looking for guys like Archie Perkins to have 30 touches. I mean, it's nice if they do, and the bloke who just dished that off, Sam Walsh, I remember one of his first practice games after going pick 1 was against Hawthorn here, and he did have about 30 touches, but you're not really looking for that. You're looking for the glimpses, the moments that are going to make them long-term players for a football club. And I think Essendon fans, even though we're only a half through this game, would have seen that already from Archie Perkins, and even Nick Cox, who's had a couple of nice moments drifting forward as well. As Jack Newnes gets across to chop that one off. It's turned a bit a little bit sloppy, and that kick probably is evidence of that, as Dev Smith finishes. No, he doesn't on the run. Just to the left of side. But yeah, I mean, that kick from Jack Newnes is probably evidence the game's turned a bit sloppy in this quarter. I mean, it's as you mentioned, the first hit out against opposition other than themselves for such a long time. You'd expect a bit of rustiness as Tom Williamson drives forward, but
Bit of sliding doors about a few players on either side here as well, Riley. Devon Smith, Dylan Shield, players who...
Will Setterfield.
Will Setterfield as well. The first two the Blues were interested in and chased hard through their years and departing the Giants. And obviously the Bombers chased Will Setterfield pretty hard too before he decided on the Blues. So Bombers supporter growing up, Will. Loved Matty Lloyd and James Hird, but chose the Navy Blues when that option arose.
Long kick inside 50. It's just fisted through from, I think that was Lockie Plowman. And the margin is back to 4 points. Pretty evenly poised as Devon Smith runs down Jack Newnes really nicely. That's got to give Essendon fans a lot of excitement for the season ahead, seeing Devon Smith really getting that closing speed and that physicality that was such a big part of his game when he was among the best Essendon players a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was his first year as a recruit, and there were some worries about his knee at that point, but he put them to the side to piece together a fantastic season. I think he's been really strong today, and as you mentioned, the little things, the zip, the zag, all that type of action from Smith has been really encouraging.
Margin back to 3 points here at Ikon Park. Adam Saad dragging that one through. And that is half-time with the Blues 3 points up. They kick the first 3 goals of that second quarter, but Essendon quickly back into the game. So it's 6-4, 42, 5-7, 37, a 3-point lead for the Blues. Still plenty to come here at Ikon Park. Michael Gibbons having a kick to himself down there in the boundary. He'll be one of the players that will see the second half along with Liam Stockart and Lockie O'Brien for Carlton. But plenty of things to get both sides excited about in that term and in that half.
This pre-season so far. So the young ruckman there probably is the Bombers' backup to Draper for 2021. We'll see him in this second half.
Looks like most of the Blues are still out there for the second half. We're expecting Lockie O'Brien and Michael Gibbons to have a bit of a run out. We saw Oscar McDonald and Callum Moore in that first half at stages as well. Liam Stock is another one who's still got the training top on, so might just be playing the final term. But as you mentioned, Nick Bryan now in the ruck against Mark Pittonet. Not hard to miss with that bleached blonde mullet, is he, as Sam Walsh gets the first clearance of the second half. Does Nick Bryan get his opportunity this year, do you reckon, Cal?
I think there'll be a stage where he probably does. They've also got Andrew Phillips, of course, the former Blue, on their list, who's another ready-made ruck option. But yeah, the signs from Bryan across the pre-season, they like his athleticism. I remember watching him through the Oakley Chargers program at under 18 level in the NAB League, and his skills are really good as well. He's got the ball now.
It's coming back, I think, for a throw against Zach Williams, it might have been in the end.
And Cutler, one of the players who didn't play in the first half, into the action early here. Starting on the wing, the Bombers like his athleticism. He's a long kick. He can run all day. It's about piecing those things together for the former Brisbane Lion, who played a handful of games last year in his first year at Essendon, having crossed from the Lions at the end of 2019.
So here is Nick Cox on the far side of the ground. He's built a bit like a stick, isn't he? But he can move at close to 200 centimetres, and he drills that long inside 50. Darcy Parish nearly got underneath it, but the Blues are able to clear through. Might have been Adam Saad in the end. Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti's looked dangerous throughout the entirety of this game so far, and he's got a few nice side steps, but he's
tried a bit too much there.
Just a trip at an inopportune moment there from Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti, and Tom Williamson dragged him down. Playing still predominantly across halfback, Tom Williamson. We mentioned before that he has pushed onto a wing at times throughout the summer so far, but looks like he's going to find his role at halfback, particularly early in the season. I think maybe with Nick Newman still sidelined with that knee injury. It's kept him out since round 2 last year. I think that's where he'll probably find his home in the early stage of the season. That's a really nice mark from Harrison Jones, who's had a couple of really good moments in this game, hasn't he, Cal?
Yeah, another player who you just want to see some moments from, and that's been one. His lead out of the goal scorer earlier and the finish on goal in the first term was another exciting passage of play. So the pieces are coming together for Harrison Jones. He's had that year of development last year. He got back to full fitness late in the season, but just left his run for a debut a little bit too late. But yeah, on track for a very early season debut for this year.
Here is Nick Bryan, who just sticks that one the wrong side of the goalpost. There's a couple of big key position players getting involved early. Even
late.
Nick Cox had a moment there as well.
On track for a very early
Nick
season.
Bryan and Harrison Jones. So some exciting glimpses for Essendon fans early. Adam Saad's been good against his former side. He's had a couple of moments where he's chopped off down back and his run's been exciting. He's that player that's so dependable defensively. A lot of the work that gets highlighted from Adam Saad is the offensive side of his game. He's so dependable defensively as well, as Patrick Cripps takes a really strong mark. Now, Sam Walsh was clattered after the ball had been kicked by Zach Merritt. The Blues go inside 50 quickly on the back of it, but here is Nick Cox, who's had a really good start to this third quarter, Nick Cox, hasn't he?
He certainly has. We haven't mentioned much of Sam Walsh throughout the day, but interesting there for Zach Merritt to be involved in a heavy collision with Sam Walsh. They do have a bit of a background together via Cobden, so we see a 50-metre penalty being paid.
Just not allowed to move your feet there, as Ed Kerner was. That one was a bit stiff because he was actually moving backwards. But
if you're told to stand, then
yes, you're not allowed to move at all. Doesn't even matter if you're moving backwards. So that's that new rule coming into effect, and that's another really strong mark from Harrison Jones. He's probably still got some upper body weight to put on. He's a bit slender in his frame, but he's getting to the front of every contest at the moment, taking a couple of really strong, nice marks.
He is, yeah. He's probably had the better of Plowman across the day, you'd say.
Yes.
Plowman finished 4th in the club's best and fairest for 2020, and he's internally viewed as a bit of an unspoken leader. Mm-hmm. And having been a part of that group for that week up in Gold Coast, he did set the tone in some things in terms of the defensive brigade, but Jones has calmly and pretty confidently slotted that goal. And I remember watching him at the Calder Cannons, Riley, and also for Vic Metro, and as I said earlier, this is a heavier version than he was at that point, so he has actually built up a little bit, and there's still a way to go on that front, but his ability to just convert his kicks, and it's so underrated, isn't it, in the modern game. If you can actually make the most of your opportunities, you don't need as many. And look, that has been the question for Ben Rutten across the pre-season and his coaching panel. How is the Bombers going to kick enough goals to compete with the better sides and to push up the ladder from last year's pretty disappointing campaign? They won 1 out of their last 10 games of the season. But the signs today have suggested that against Carlton, who is a high-scoring side, that they can piece together the parts. And look at the group. It's Jones, it's Wright, it's Perkins, it's Braden Ham inside the forward 50. So some new faces and new roles being played.
Here is Ham going inside 50 and looking for that Cale Hooker, I think, who snaps around the body, and the ball's just smothered slightly. Geez, Liam Jones was lucky not to get away a throwing free kick there as the ball trickles towards the boundary. Yeah, Harry Jones, the only multiple goal kickers so far. So he's got 2 of Essendon's 6. But you did mention that Peter Wright's hit the scoreboard. Alec Waterman, not on the list yet, but has had some exciting moments. He's hit the scoreboard. Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuiti's hit the scoreboard, which is probably what you want to see from Essendon, because they're going to be the guys that are going to kick the goals at different stages throughout the year as Zach Williams wheels around but without much of a target, and Jordan Ridley will gobble them up all day if he gets the opportunity.
I also think it's up to the Essendon midfielders too to hit the scoreboard a lot more than they have in previous years. Last year, Dylan Shield kicked a couple, Zach Merritt kicked a couple, but Andy McGrath didn't kick a goal all season. So if those three can start combining for a little bit more, then there's a lot to work with. And it was a good contest there, wasn't it, from Perkins, who put his body on the line.
Nick Hine now delivering this one inside 50. Jones coming across. Geez, he crunched the pack and he's been paid the mark. I'm not sure he held it for long enough, but it's
amazing work.
A very strong leap and athletic leap from Liam Jones. That's what Carlton fans have become accustomed to since he moved into a defensive post. He's willing to throw his body around back there and impact the contest in any way possible. And it was actually interesting to hear Jacob Wiedering speak earlier this week about winning the best and fairest on Friday night, and just said that without meaning to disrespect what the best and fairest means to Carlton, but he said if he could share it, he would, because he said he owes as much of it to Liam Jones as anyone else, just given that he's able to do so much of his work in taking a man and chopping off a man, and formed a pretty solid defensive partnership back there as Setterfield looks for Jack Silvani. Just the kick just held up a little bit in that wind. Patrick Cripps went in way too ambitiously and gives away a free kick.
To Laverty, who's on the ground playing, as I mentioned, in that half-back role. Big year for Jaden Laverty this year in terms of his career. There's been some injury setbacks throughout. It seems like whenever he's about to get going, he gets hurt. Last year was one of a number of syndesmosis victims for the Bombers, alongside Jake Stringer, Andy McGrath too, just when he started to really hold his own in that lineup. So hopefully a change of position can result in a change of luck, and we can see a bit more from Jaden Laverty, a top 20 pick from 2014, and still working out his game at the top level.
Carlton moving this ball nicely from one flank to the other, and eventually finding Jack Newnes, who's well accustomed to this area of the field. If you remember last year's match winning after the siren goal against Fremantle, a really nice pinpoint kick that we just see there on the replay from Sam Petrevski-Seton. There's been a lot of questions floating around about whether Sam Petrevski-Seton will potentially move back into the midfield. He was drafted as a midfielder. He's gone to half-back under David Teague, and I think that's what he provides in that position, as Jack Newnes absolutely flushes that from 55 and puts it through. So the Blues reclaim the lead by 2 points. But Sam Petrevski-Seton is an interesting one, because we had a chat about him a couple of weeks ago when we were watching the intra-club, whether or not he can push through the midfield again, because he was such a contested ball winner as a junior playing over in WA through that midfield. But he's got such composure on either side of the foot that you can see why the Blues would like him off half-back, because he is that calm head that can deliver the footy so precisely with his left or his right foot. So where do you see him long-term, though? Because it seems like, once again, he's going to be lining up there across half-back.
He actually got addicted to kicking on his left foot as a junior. He's a right footer, and I remember asking him, why do you go on your left so much? And he said, oh, because I can. So he's got the ability to do it, and he loves it. It does open up the ground for him across half-back, because if you can go on both sides and your opponent doesn't know exactly which side you will go on, then it gives you options. So I like the fact he's at half-back, because you put him against Saad and Doherty, and there's three very different half-back rebounders, all in their different styles, and he's one of them.
Geez, this is exciting. One bounce through the middle and then straightening up on that left foot, which he's known to do, and that's a good mark from Patrick Cripps.
Geez, if any piece of play can sum up why the Blues went so hard, and this management team headed by Nick Austin and Mickey Resta went so hard at Adam Saad, then that was it, wasn't it? That was symbolic Saad, really, off half-back, and a dashing kick. And
the pivotal handball out of the contest from Paddy Dow. That's the working congestion that we've seen from him as a junior, that made him that pick 3 in the 2017 draft. This that ability to get clean hands out of a contest, give it off to Adam Saad, who took a bounce and found Cripps. And that's a dangerous prospect for Carlton as well. I mean, having Patrick Cripps, having someone able to run through the midfield, just got rid of Aaron Francis probably a touch too easily then, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's a big boy though, isn't he? And even as a key back in Francis, he's probably outsized by this midfield beast in Paddy Cripps, who's spent the summer beefing up again, putting on strength. Last year went more down the angle of improving his fitness and being more of a running type of midfielder. Probably didn't work out especially for him, so he's gone back to his old habits, and they're playing out of the goal square. It's a pretty imposing prospect to stop as a key defender.
Dev Smith now racing forward. Interesting, before we saw a vision of Ben Rutten coaching from the bench. Is that something you expect from the first-year coach this year?
Yeah, I mean, John Worsfold did it in stages last year, and for most of last year, really, because he had Ben Rutten and Blake Carosella, who's obviously such a trusted assistant back in the box as well. You know, the Bombers coaching panel has had a bit of a rejig over summer. They recently lost James Kelly, who quit the club. Daniel Giansiracusa, who joined from the Western Bulldogs last year and was voted the AFL-CIO's Assistant Coach of the Year in 2020. He's joined and is viewed as a senior coach in waiting. So perhaps in part it's to help embolden his progress at the club, but Ben Rutten, obviously a really key part of what the Bombers are planning to do throughout 2021. But this is his game plan. This is his system. It's going to take a little bit of time to embed that properly. And before he gets his full list at hand too, we need a couple of years for him to be able to get to that stage.
forward. Now it's well tapped away by Cuningham, but just can't get onto the second ball. Ridley nips that off and it's out for a throw-in. Pittonet against Peter Wright in the ruck and just tosses him aside there. Out to Dow, who gets a nice sweeping handball to Martin and Curnow, and they go forward again. Haven't seen much of Harry Kai so far in this game.
No, James Stewart's done a pretty good job, I thought. Harry McKay started pretty well and set up a couple of opportunities and kicked one of his own, but Stewart's more than held his own, and yeah, this is, as we mentioned, a new role for him as a full-time defender, and that's where Michael Hurley, had he not gone down with his hip infection, a mysterious hip infection, the club's still getting to the bottom of how that actually arose, but he had been training as a key forward, which in itself was going to be an interesting dynamic, how they combine their younger forwards with their more senior options down there.
Devon Smith now out of the middle, just tapping that through for behind. So the Blues with a slender lead. 2 kicks in it at the moment as Aaron Francis mopped up. He's got the job on Paddy Cripps, who spent the majority of this third term resting out of the goal square. Kicked a nice goal before if you just missed it. Pittonet finds himself with the footy. Sam Walsh, who's stepped more into the midfield with Cripps forward, delivers that inside.
Yeah, and I think the role for Walsh, the best role for Walsh is as an inside midfielder. I know last year he turned his game into being one of the best young wingmen in the competition.
Cunningham kicks that through, but it's shepherded through by James Stewart.
And if the All-Australian selectors picked wingman on the wing, he would have been in the discussion for one of those spots because he ended the year in sensational touch. Finished second in the Carlton Best and Fairest last week. But yeah, I think his best spot and his spot of the future is as an inside ball getter who can just use that breakaway pace, which he does have. He does have some burst. And also the endurance level that he has. And he's a professional. So excited to see what year 3 brings for Sam Walsh.
Tom Williamson with a nice fend off and kick inside 50, but it's Nick Hind and Aaron Francis mopping up there for Essendon, and Zach Merritt will clear them out of defensive 50 with a kick to Braden Ham, who's got his hands on the footy quite a fair bit today, Braden Ham. You'd have to be pretty pleased with the signs you've seen from him as well. Apart from that kick, which has gone straight to Sam Doherty. Geez, I tell you what, you give someone a rap, and that's what they do to you.
He has been good though. He's just looked a little bit more in tune with the way and the role he's meant to be playing. There was a couple of stages last year where playing some defensive wing roles or playing across half forward when Essendon was struggling, that it was a battle for him to get involved. But here, and this is what I like for his game, is the link-up play.
Yep. They've just been close to getting that right all game, Essendon. The passage of handballs streaming out of defence. A couple of players really important in that. Nick Hind, we saw Ham, as you mentioned. Paddy Dowd's a good sidestep from him, but just that final kick inside 50 hasn't been there. Unlike that one from Paddy Dow. We spoke about the work he's done in his finishing this summer, Paddy Dow. That was a lovely finishing kick inside 50 to Harry McKay, who takes a strong mark. And this is where, having written the article on him earlier this week, I'm sure you're looking to see how his action matches up with the work he's done both mentally and physically over the off-season. Just inside 50, he brings it back nicely and gets his second for the game, Harry McKay. So he becomes Carlton's first multiple goal kicker as the margin stretches out to 16 points. They're just starting to get on top again here, the Blues.
That was Paddy Dow of 2017. That's the reason he got drafted at pick 3. That's the reason he excited so many Blues supporters. I think it might have even been here at Ikon Park in one of those practice games.
Against St Kilda, when he lost his 2 front teeth, remember that?
Correct. It was a big night for Paddy Dow. Paddy Wow got the first nickname, and that was born. But just the sidestep there, and the composure, and then the grab from Harry McKay, who I think we all forget, it's only 23. And when you look at the competition for key forwards, it takes a couple of years to get going, and he's had some injury setbacks. He's only played 48 games. Only 23 of them have been played with Charlie Curnow. So this pairing that the Blues brought in the 2015 draft with their early selections just haven't been out there much together. We know that that won't happen for at least the first half of this season again. But when he's out there and dominating in the air like that, it's pretty hard to stop.
Cal Moore, this is why the Blues like him as a ruck option so much, because he can finish up his work and kick long inside 50. That one trickles out for a boundary throw-in. You're right, though, and he provides that point of difference in the Carlton midfield. We spoke pre-game about Zach Williams and that explosive pace that he could offer from stoppages. Paddy Gow's got that as well, and he's got the clean hands, the ability to sidestep through traffic. So he could become a pretty important weapon for Carlton this year if he can get his confidence back and start producing the form that he did at the Geelong Falcons. Here's Zach Fisher one way and the other. Looks like Aaron Francis, who was down the ground. I don't think he wanted that because he might be struggling with something. It might be a knee, it looks like, as that ball's kicked around. It's just slow to get to his feet here, Aaron Francis.
Bit of a limp, yeah.
It looked like he just had a awkward landing when he tried to tackle Zach Williams there, but trainer's out to him. He looks like he's trying to soldier on. The back of screen there, as you can see.
So. Yep. Laverty with the pass out to Brian. Nearly takes control of that grab. McDonald Tipperwoody's been good.
He has been. That's going to be holding the ball against Adam Saad. Another good tackle from the man you were just speaking about, Anthony McDonald Tipperwoody. He's providing a really good forward target, and his trademark way is lively when the ball hits the deck.
And led the goal kicking last year for the Bombers with 19 majors. Probably not his best year, though, not in the 30s. Obviously, shortened season, but as we see Aaron Francis leave the ground with that knock to the leg, the way he's leaving without the assistance of trainers would be of some hope, though, for the Bombers that he's dodged anything too serious. As Perkins gets an opportunity here, tackled by Cripps inside 50.
It's probably one of those ones, absolutely no risk and no need to take a risk when we're 3 weeks out from the season.
He's a player who gets the odd nickel and knock as well, and hopefully this one's a very minor one.
High tackle free kick against Devon Smith. I don't think the Bombers will mind too much about that because, as we've mentioned a couple of times today, that physicality and that willingness to hit the contest hard is back for Devon Smith. He looks primed for another pretty significant 2021 season.
You mentioned Francis's history with injuries across his time since being a top 10 pick in 2015, and that's probably pretty stark. A good grab from Pittonet and off to Williams. But it's pretty stark in the numbers that Darcy Parish, who was drafted one pick earlier, has played 93 games at AFL level, and Aaron Francis has played 35. So hopefully this is the year that he can get his body right. And we know his kicking, his overhead marking, his exuberance through that part of the ground can be a weapon for the Bombers.
So McKay goes top of the goal square there. That's where I personally would just like to see Harry McKay pin the ears back a bit. 45 out, pretty sharp angle, but when you've been doing that much work on your goal kicking, I think back yourself from there. You're the number one key forward. Have a shot, I reckon. Maybe you might get that message from David Teague after the game. Pittonet can't get boot to ball, but Mark Murphy can. Puts it through. Carlton have another. And the lead is out to 23 points. The biggest it has been all day as Mark Murphy has slotted through a goal on that half-forward role that he's playing. He's looked pretty lively down there, Mark Murphy. Maybe Mark Pittonet was a bit lucky not to be pinged for holding the ball, but got his hands to the footy and snapped well. He's a good finisher around goal, so you can see why Carlton like their former skipper in that role.
Absolutely. He's sharp, isn't he? And I guess the good thing from a Carlton perspective is they don't need him in the midfield anymore, and know what a excellent contributor he's been in that role for more than a decade. The number one pick all those years ago. Really hasn't missed a beat throughout his career, apart from the odd injury in the past few years. But yeah, I like it. It's a forward line that you look at now. It's got Harry McKay, there's Zach Williams down there, Jack Silvani's working into that role, Mark Murphy, we've seen Zach Fisher play there for most of the day. So there's goal kicking options, isn't there?
Yep. Still a few to come back into this side as well. We talk about Mitch McGovern and Levi Casbolt, who aren't here today. Eddie Betts, slow recovery from a calf injury, but he should be playing next week's Amy Community Series fixture against St Kilda. So they have got goal kicking options to come back into this side. And then we haven't even mentioned Charlie Curnow, who's probably still the number one forward if Harry McKay hasn't taken that mantle from him at the Blues, but we just haven't seen him for such a long time due to those consistent knee setbacks. Paddy Dow trying to get to this contest. Zach Merritt keeps it in play.
I think Nick Bryan's been quite impressive this term.
He has been.
Battling against a more experienced, more mature ruckman, a bigger physically prospect. I think he's looked to fit in quite seamlessly. Obviously, this is the first real time he's actually got to work with his midfield too, so there's chemistry that has to be built there, but won some good tap-outs and around the ground has played his way too.
Jack Martin in the midfield there just can't get a kick that gets beyond Kyle Langford, and Zach Merritt takes it away with a nice pass to Nick Cox, who finds Jai Caldwell a couple of new faces for Essendon. That's a very nice kick too.
Yeah.
Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti, who just beats Lockie Plowman on the lead and takes a mark inside 50 and will go back for his second of the day.
A lot of Essendon supporters wouldn't have seen too much of Jai Caldwell before today because injuries and preparation that the Giants put into him over a couple of seasons meant he only played 9 games last year, 2 the previous year in his debut. He debuted in that famous game in Canberra where it snowed that night for the Giants, so pretty infamous debut for Jai in that respect, but
just doesn't get there from Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti, but they have another opportunity with Peter Wright, who can't hook it around his body.
But the best thing about Jai is that he comes to the club from an Essendon perspective and he's got that groundwork of his body all of a sudden having confidence in that.
Yep.
And as a draftee, he didn't have that either for his under-18 season, so it's been 3 injury-interrupted seasons for him. And now the Giants have done that work, and that was partly the reason they were so disappointed that he left at the end of last year, because they rated him so highly. He was a part of that 2018 Super Draft, the second Super Draft that we all talk about, and Sam Walsh was at the top of that pool.
There is Sam Walsh. Nice flowing move this from Carlton. Can Zach Fisher find the kick inside 50? I tell you what, he sells some nice candy to James Stewart and picks out Jack Martin. And here is Sam Petrevski-Seton, who's not a noted goal kicker, and perhaps why he finds Zach Williams. So it was interesting for the Blues that the little rotation they made just prior to this movement. Patrick Cripps went off the field for a break. He'd been resting forward. And Zach Williams, who had spent almost the entirety of the quarter playing out of the middle from centre bounces, moved into his position out at the goal square. And now he's taken this mark and will look to further extend Carlton's lead.
And if he can become another string to David Teague's bow as a forward, it makes him an even more exciting package, doesn't it, really? Because you have this weaponry, don't you, that can go forward. And even if you had to, there's an injury or there's someone out of form across half-back. He's already done that for the best part of his career before becoming a free agent last year. So that was a really nice finish.
It was. So the Blues, their lead is out to 29 points. They've got a bit of a run on in this third quarter. But as you mentioned, Zach Williams, something that we haven't necessarily seen him do a lot throughout his career is go forward and kick goals. But he kicked a couple in the intra-club that we were at a couple of weeks ago, and he's added one today, but playing out of the goal square, really nice pass from Sam Petrevski-Seton to find him.
Very unselfish player, Sam Petrevski-Seton. That's probably half the reason why he doesn't hit the scoreboard too much, because he's very welcoming of other people getting their chance in front of the big sticks.
You do mention that it is quite a versatile midfield for the Blues. We've seen Cripps rest forward. Zach Fisher's now in the goal square up against Jaden Laverty. And now we've got Jack Martin, who's spent the majority of the game forward, starting in this centre bounce. Lockie Fogarty's had a couple in there. Sam Walsh has had a couple in there. So it is a very versatile Carlton midfield that can do a bit of everything as Patrick Cripps wins yet another clearance. He's been one of the game's most dominant players today and will set a field drives the Blues forward. Harry McKay just can't mark.
Well done by Stewart there as well. And we see
he's been good across half-back, hasn't he?
See Jordan Ridley with the kick out, and probably haven't seen as much of Ridley with the intercept work today as we become accustomed to last year, but he's a really nice kick too. So he's clearly been appointed the kick-out specialist for the Bombers.
Archie Perkins, you could see what he was trying to do, but Jack Martin's a hard man to get around. He's noted for his tackling ability at Carlton. Stops the first-year midfielder in his tracks there. Lockie Fogarty goes inside 50. Just can't find him. Oh, there's a lovely goal from Paddy Dow, who takes the ball at its highest point and slots it through on the goal line. He's got a couple. Carlton's lead is out to 6 goals. But I'll tell you what, from a Carlton perspective, it's Paddy Dow who's excited you the most today, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. just looks comfortable again at the level. And it's amazing what a full summer, a full season of preparation. Obviously, Andrew Russell at the Blues has had a real input in building the Paddy Dow package in terms of using that speed and explosiveness out of the centre, which is the lasting image I'll always have of Paddy Dow's under-18 season, that ability for just break a tackle, kick it inside 50 and do it again and again and again. So for him to be able to push forward today, kick a couple of goals, he's got 2 already, really adds something to what he's doing with his footy. And I'd say that if the game stopped now, he'd be pretty happy with what he's been able to produce so far, and just a little bit of confidence and self-belief that, hey, after an injury-interrupted season, I'm ready to take another step forward. Some good signs for the Bombers, though, in terms of Aaron Francis. Did leave the track and go down to the rooms for some medical assistance, but is now warming up again on the boundary line, so it looks like that was just a knock earlier this term and will be back.
Here is Nick Cox. He's had a fair bit of it in this quarter, Nick Cox. And he drills that inside 50. Won't quite make the distance, and Jacob Wiedering is standing underneath it to take a very strong mark. There is Aaron Francis. Just did a few laps around the boundary, looks set to come back on. So I reckon if you're bringing on a player who's hobbled off the field in a practice match 3 weeks before round 1, you're probably pretty confident that they're right to go. So
you mentioned Nick Cox there, Riley, and for Essendon supporters who are getting accustomed to what he plays like, who he plays like, and what he might be able to do in the future, think Mark Blitzarves. That's the type of player I think you should look at Nick Cox as being. Blitzarves, we know the history of as a steeplechaser and athletically his background is amazing. Big tackle there from Sam Walsh.
Just too high.
On Will Snelling. But I think in the future, that's the Nick Cox role. That where's he going to line up every week? And what can he do?
Peter Wright will get this free kick. He was just backed into there by Tom Williamson, who didn't have his eyes on the footy. So Peter Wright made a pretty lively start to this one. He's tapered out a little bit, but should go back and drill his second goal here. So at the end of the day, if you're an Essendon fan, you see multiple goals to Harrison Jones and Peter Wright, you've got to be pretty comforted in some sense that they can be notable goal kickers at different stages throughout this year. And I might have just spoken a touch too soon. No, he has drilled that one, Peter Wright. Right on the siren. So the margin is going to be 30 points at 3/4 time. Carlton with a 6-goal third quarter moves to 12-8-80. And the Bombers, 7-8-50. That one came right off the side of the boot from Peter Wright, but just snuck through. So multiple goal kicks for the Blues. Harry McKay and Paddy Dow have each got 2 for the Bombers. Harrison Jones and Peter Wright have each got 2 as well. Some exciting signs from both sides here at this practice match at Ikon Park. It's Carlton by 30 points at 3/4 time. We'll be back momentarily for the start of the final term.
Resident supporters and members. It's obviously more important than ever in 2021 to be a member of your club if you want to get to games during the home and away season. So all members will have the first opportunity to get tickets to Bombers' homes games, with reserve seat members given priority access as the AFL works through its COVID restrictions for 2021. So if you want to get to games, bring along your family and friends, make sure they don the sash this year.
Just on that front, Carlton is giving all members as well who supported the club through a tough 2020 a free additional membership this year that can be gifted to a family member or friend who isn't already a member. So if you haven't done so already, contact the membership team, Blues fans, on 1300 227 586 or at membership@carltonfc.com.au.
Lockie O'Brien warming up as well now, Riley, so we're likely to see him in this last quarter. Michael Gibbons still a chance to come on.
Yeah, I think Michael Gibbons was just having a joke with a couple of the coaches at 3/4 time, was still in the Carlton tracksuit. So I think Michael Gibbons might be a miss for today, but Lockie O'Brien is one who will see some action in the final quarter. Though in saying that, he's just sprinting up the stands at the moment. I'm not sure what he's doing. He's running through the actual grandstand here at Ikon Park. So he's kitted out. He's got his boots on, so hopefully he should come back at some stage.
An injury interruption as well for Cal Moore as well. He's got his right calf strap, so a bit of a setback for him as he left the ground in the 3/4 time huddle, and obviously vying for a spot on the list via the pre-season signing period.
Here's Harry McKay, who delivers this one inside 50. Mark Pittonet camped underneath it, but that is a very nice mark from James Stewart, who's done some very good things. Michael Gibbons, another one who looks like he's pulled the arm of the Carlton coaching group and is coming out wearing his full kit for the final quarter. So we will see Michael Gibbons and Lockie O'Brien at some stage this year. I spoke to David Teague earlier this month for afl.com.au, and he was very bullish on what Lockie O'Brien could do. Said he'd really got his running power and his kicking abilities back after a pretty injury-interrupted pre-season last year, and he said he's really using the ball well again. He's got that outside run going again. So that's why Carlton drafted him with the top 10 pick in that 2017 NAB AFL draft. And Paddy Dow, who they took at pick 3 that year, has been able to showcase his potential today. We'll see if Lockie O'Brien, if he gets 20-odd minutes in the game's final stages, if he's able to as well. As Adam Saad's and Harry McKay might have just collided then in a contest. Harry McKay standing the marquee. The Carlton trainer came out to him, but he's quickly brushed him aside and said he's fine. So Adam Saad, the other one who limped away slightly from that contest, but look like they're all okay for the Blues. In fact, Harry McKay might actually just be jogging off here at the moment. Some less than ideal signs for Harry.
Yeah, not ideal. He's obviously had, just as we spoke about before, one of his best pre-seasons yet. His continuity and getting through some months without any setbacks. So hopefully this is on the minor end and just a knock. But obviously he's favouring that injury there, his right side.
It's the last thing you want in an unofficial scratch match, to see your number one key forward limp off with 20-odd minutes to go. So,
especially given the key forward stocks, when they're all up and going at Carlton, obviously really strong, isn't it? We've got injury. Levi Casbolt missing today, though. Mitch McGovern is missing with a hamstring issue. Charlie Curnow will be back sometime in the second half of the season. So, obviously there's a fair reliance on Harry McKay, and I think that's something that he was growing to and warming to. He's a player who does like the spotlight and does love the swagger that comes with being a tall forward, and I think that's something that we probably would have seen unfold this year. So hopefully it's just a minor one and a bit of a scare.
There's another one to keep an eye on here is Jacob Wiedering, who's limped away from that contest. So Carlton's two real pillars, up forward and down back. He's just shaking off a little, what looks to be a bit of an ankle injury on that right side, Jacob Wiedering. But it's a free kick which Alec Waterman, the train-on player for Essendon, has accepted. He's looking for his second goal of the day. He's been a prolific ball winner today, but he's done enough nice things, and he's a fantastic kick. He drills that one through and gets one back for Essendon. So margin reduced to 25 points. Alec Waterman's got his second. And as we wrote on AFL.com.au earlier this week, that the train-on spots are down to 1 at Essendon, so you'd have to think he's in the box seat to earn that final spot in their list.
Yeah, Angus Baker from New South Wales and formerly of the Giants Academy, and also Charlie Byrne, the dashing halfback, did spend some weeks training with the club at the start of this pre-season, but Waterman is the last one standing. That doesn't guarantee it. Last year the Bombers had Nigel Lockyer be one of the last people standing at their training group, and they ended up going with Ruckman Henry Crawford. So you're never quite sure which way they've chosen to go, but Waterman certainly has done his hopes no harm.
You can see that Jacob Wiedering has gone down to match him up. The doctor did come out to Wiedering, but he's fine. He's continuing on in this one. He's just copped a bit of a knock in that last contest as Darcy Parish wins the ball out of the centre. Archie Perkins on it, and he's been caught on a couple of times, Archie Perkins, so he's still getting up to the pace of senior footy. As you mentioned before, it's probably his first official hit out in almost a year, given he would have lost his entire draft year to the COVID-19 pandemic and the cancelled NAB League season. He was certainly one that a lot of recruiters were keeping their eyes on, but hasn't played for a while, Archie Perkins, as the Blues work it out of their defence nicely through Plowman and Ed Curnow.
He just keeps keeping on, doesn't he?
He does. 3 straight top 3 finishes in Carlton's best and fairest, and a real constant presence as Zach Fisher tries to take advantage, but he's not allowed to by the umpire, and David Cuningham will go back.
And we've been at training a fair bit this year as well across a lot of clubs, and Ed Curnow's running alongside Sam Walsh and Matt Cottrell is just like something you regularly expect when you go and see a Carlton session, and that's a great grab from Pittonet. And we mentioned before about turning him into more of a forward threat. Well,
particularly if there's some issue with Harry McKay now out of this game. That is a great mark, and he's shown great presence there throughout this game.
He has. Adam Saad back on the field. He was the other one that sort of limped off in that collision with Harry McKay. He's back out there. Harry's still watching on from the bench as Pittonet puts that through. So he's got his second of the day, and the Blues extend their lead back out to 31 points. Yeah, you like seeing that, him, Pittonet, the big ruckman, just go down to the goal square and take a few big marks and really throw his body weight around. I was down here at training on Monday and was surprised to hear everyone calling him Brad. I couldn't figure it out until I realised Brad Pittonet makes a bit of sense. But doesn't have the looks, but does have the height. So he's an important player for Carlton this year, especially with Tom de Koning and Levi Casbolt currently stricken with injury.
Moving into TMZ territory here, Riley.
So it's a 31-point lead here for the Blues midway through this final quarter. As Pittonet gets the hit out, he's doing it all at the moment, Mark Pittonet. Zach Williams providing that speed on the outside, which is what Carlton was certainly hoping for when they drafted or recruited him from GWS as a free agent. Harry Jones marks strongly on the lead. One of the most impressive players probably for Essendon today, and spots up Alec Waterman, who takes another nice mark. He's really pressing his case, isn't he?
Absolutely, and the last shot he had at goal was 10 metres further out, so the distance won't be any trouble. He banged that one home, and obviously the son of Chris Waterman, the Eagles premiership player, the brother of Jake Waterman, the Eagles current forward, and his career at the Eagles was pretty short-lived. He had chronic fatigue syndrome in his time there and went back to change himself. He used to be a midfielder, Riley. That was his go.
Tell you what, he can powerful kick and a straight kick. He's got 3, so he's been probably Essendon's most lively forward today. Alec Waterman kicked 2 in this final quarter, 3 for the game. He's taken a couple of really strong marks on the lead, and it's really made a good impression. I think when you think of the 3 train-on players that have played today, and you think what's on the line for them, what's at stake, finding a new home for the 2021 season, that SSP deadline falls on March 9. You did write an interesting column last week about clubs just debating whether or not they'd use those final list spots or take them through to the mid-season draft, which is returning this year. Essendon have multiple list spots though, don't they?
Well, Irving Mosquito can be put onto the inactive list as well, having done that ACL surgery last year, that unfortunate injury just as he was getting his career up and going. So he'll miss all this year. So they have that option too. They might leave a spot open. Yeah, as I mentioned in the story, I mean, clubs have been debating whether they say, why don't we leave a spot open for the mid-season draft, knowing that there's probably going to be a few bolters as 19-year-olds who missed out on last year getting picked because of the COVID issues in Victoria in particular. So there'll be a few 19-year-olds who do boom at the start of this season. It's just an interesting one. Every club will look at it very differently.
Nice flowing move, and it's Ned Carl who drills the ball inside 50, but just can't find a target.
The bit I liked about that piece of play was also Jai Caldwell.
Yeah.
With the quick hands, a really smart handball to see the guy coming past and to hit him with that one. It's just the little things I think that the Bombers would be hoping to see from Jai Caldwell. I'm not expecting Caldwell to change the way they play just yet because he is relatively inexperienced, but just those signs that he's coming to grips with the pace of the game and also some teammates around him.
Tom Cutler getting that ball and intercepting, but the Bombers can't get it out of their back 50, and Ed Curnow will deliver it back inside. Here's Will Setterfield, who spent most of the day on a wing. Probably played his best footy as an inside midfielder last year in what was perhaps his best year on Carlton's list and as an AFL player, but back on a wing with the Blues trialling a few others through the centre of the ground.
Michael Gibbons is resurfaced as a sub. It was almost like the sub rules back. He's just active, quick, and he kicks it to his good mate, Zach Fisher. A nice little pinpoint pass. One play we haven't seen yet from a Carlton perspective.
As Fisher wheels around and just sneaks that home.
That's another goal for Fisher. Another goal to the Carlton small forwards too, who Mark Murphy's kicked 1, Fisher's kicked 2. Cunningham pushed forward and kicked 1 there. Dow's kicked 2. So some good results from a smaller fleet of players there. One play we haven't seen yet, Riley, though, just saw him warming up, was Liam Stocker. He spoke to David Teague about him a couple of weeks ago. Where's he at as a footballer?
Yeah, he's finally got his tracksuit top on, top off. Sorry, so he's about to come on, Liam Stocker, for the last 15 minutes or so of this contest. Look, Carlton have looked to get him back in the midfield under David Teague. Probably moved to half back in his first couple of years under Brendan Bolton, but Teague's really adamant that he sees him as a powerful stoppage midfielder, and he said as the summer progressed and as Carlton started ramping up their contact work and they started doing stoppage practice at training, that Liam Stocker was one that really excelled. So, I mean, look, that's where he made his name as a junior playing in the NAB League, one of the NAB League's best player coming through the system. It's where Carlton probably identified him. They traded up in that high-profile trade with Adelaide to get him, and that's probably where they see him where their recruitment team probably saw him playing his best footy. So he is playing back as that inside midfielder and played 5 games in his first year. Unfortunately, didn't manage a game last year, but he's one that Blues fans will be excited about this year if he can eventually get back on the park.
Morris medalist at under 18 level in the NAB League. So, and that was as an inside midfielder who could kick it on both feet. It was really powerful and had a great second half of the season. So hopefully he can get back to that sort of confidence. And from what we understand, his pre-season has been epic with how much work he puts in.
Yes.
Hopefully that can translate once games roll around.
Yeah, that's been a factor of every time we come down here to Ikon Park, you always hear that he's one of the first on the track and one of the last to leave. So hopefully it can translate to some good footy, as it looks like Harrison Jones might have been held in the contest there. Now the ball's going to, guess who? Alec Waterman.
He's getting closer and closer with every shot.
He started on the goal line from a 50-metre penalty, but this is kind of turning into a pretty remarkable story. He's lining up for his 4th goal today. I mean, he's almost demanding a spot in that Essendon list ahead of round 1, and kicks that one. He hasn't even made the goal umpire move yet so far, but I mean, hypothetically speaking, Cal, if he was to win a place on Essendon's list by March 9, you'd almost have to pencil him in for round 1 at this rate.
Well, they've obviously got the AAMI Community Series clash against Geelong coming up, but that game against Hawthorn in round 1, you can imagine now, he'd have a fair bit of confidence heading into this game that he was a really good shot at it, and he's absolutely made the most of it. And it hasn't been in a full game either. He spent some time on the interchange bench, but this quarter, clearly with 3 shots on goal, 3 dead-eye kicks, I think Essendon supporters would be looking at this guy and thinking, can he be a player who supports the forward group that's already there? Now, it's worth looking and talking about who the players there. We see Harrison Jones, we've seen Archie Perkins do snippets. Devon Smith's been really good today. Braden Ham's pushed up as well. Jake Stringer is still Essendon's most important forward. He's not out there. There's some uncertainty around when he gets back at the start of the season with that Achilles/ankle/calf issue that he's had at different stages throughout the pre-season. But he is clearly their best forward and their better chance at kicking a fair tally of goals, and probably would have won their goal kicking for the 3rd straight year last year had he not been injured with that ankle injury. So he's the most important one. If they can build around him with some different players, then there's probably enough, I think, that on the back of today to think that they might be able to hit the scoreboard. And that was the main question coming into today's game. Who's going to kick the goals? And Waterman's bobbed up with 4.
Sees Adam Saad in a pretty unfamiliar position and kicks it to his old teammate James Stewart on the last line of defence. The Blues just rushed it through for a behind. That came from a long penetrating kick from Lockie O'Brien, which is what we spoke about before. So a real 55, 60-metre kick going inside 50. So that's what he is capable of when he can get the ball in space, as Waterman looks to get out the back again.
And a lot of words spoken over the past couple of weeks, Rolly, about this man on the mark adjustment. Again today, like yesterday's practice game, only one 50-metre penalty called as a result of it. I see new umpires boss Dan Richardson is here watching on. Obviously formerly the footy boss at the Bombers. Departed the club at the end of last season and was quickly snapped up by the AFL in that position. So he's here overseeing that area of the game, and here's 2-metre Peter with his hands out. And look, one of his redeeming qualities, Riley, is kicking. He's an excellent kick. And I think that, across his time in his career, we've seen that at the Suns. And even going back to his draft year in 2014, he's just a fantastic kick. And I know I'm risking putting the Moz on him here.
Yep.
Not too bad.
Just drifting back. Nick Cox is going to float in and take a uncontested mark in the end, directly in front. Wheels around and kicks a goal. You're right, though. Put it into the right place, even if it didn't go through. But
this is a 200-centimetre player, though, who can kick it really classily.
Yeah.
Whenever he's inside 50. So, yeah, I think Cox has been a highlight.
Deserved that goal, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been pretty active around the half-forward line and on the wing. And look, it's not going to be through lack of work rate that Nick Cox doesn't get the footy in his hands. So, clearly has pushed forward from a wing spot to be on the goal line in this instance. Curls it round.
And I think that passage there probably just indicates the dilemmas that Nick Cox is going to cause for opposition sides. He's matched up against Will Setterfield at that contest, and Will Setterfield probably got deceived a little bit by the flight. But even if he makes that contest and it's a 1-on-1, you've got Will Setterfield, who's a player who's bordering on 190 centimetres against a bloke who's over 200, Nick Cox, but plays the same position as him because of his running capacity. So he's a unique player, Nick Cox, and that's the headache he's going to cause opposition sides all year. As Jai Caldwell flicks that ball out very nicely to Zach Merritt. The kick's not as great and falls down to the chest of Liam Jones, but some exciting little midfield passages from Essendon in this final quarter. They've reduced the margin to 20 points. Blues still in control with a few minutes to go in this one. As Liam Stocker has the footy, he's finally on the field. You can see why the Blues and Brendan Bolton, the former coach, did like him as a halfback. He's got a penetrating right foot, but it is certainly as a midfielder where he will make his name at this level. As Carlton goes inside 50. Essendon with the numbers though, and they will clear through. Tom Cutler, who, I say that, they nearly didn't. Got run down and Setterfield gets the ball back on his boot.
Probably needed a little bit more urgency there.
Just didn't really have much to kick to though, forward of the ball, did he?
And Ned Carl was another bomber who started the game quite well. Has probably faded a little bit in that new roll-off halfback, but I thought he was one of the Bombers' best players in the first term as they were up and about, and a player who's moved in with Andy McGrath and Jordan Ridley, so a bit of an elite household there, and he's learning plenty from them as the younger member of that crew.
Here's Will Snelling.
Bit of an underrated player for the Bombers last year. Finished in the top 10 of the best and fairest and played every game. So someone who, off the mid-season draft, which we spoke about just before, Riley, has really taken his second chance, having previously been delisted by Port Adelaide in that half-forward / small midfield role.
Now a question for you. We spotlighted a couple of players before this game. I just saw Jack Silvani there. As Paddy Dow stands up in a tackle and gets it to Jack Newnes. The strength of Paddy Dow, his upper body strength and the work he's done over the off-season, really on show here. But I spotlighted Jack Silvani. He probably hasn't had the day that he might have liked. I mean, you really want to see him hit the scoreboard a couple of times this year, and I know there's a few injury concerns now for Harry McKay, who's limped from the field. Whether or not Carlton has that deep target to support McKay, or
well, what do they do? Let's say that McKay
it's interesting
has suffered a bit of an injury here, and he hasn't come back since limping from the field, and we hope and fingers crossed that it is just a minor issue. But with their other three key forwards out injured at the moment, and Casbolt's due to be back by round 1.
We're expecting Casbolt to be fit potentially for next week's March Amy Community Series game. Now, Mitch McGovern, I think, is a bit further back with a hamstring injury. So can you blood a player who hasn't played any practice matches for round 1? Can you put them straight back into the thick of the action? That's a
I think you can.
Pretty lingering question. If you can, then maybe Casbolt and McGovern get up for round 1. There's still 3 weeks. The Blues sort of seem confident that both will play in that game, so they're still an option. But I think regardless of whether or not they're fit, I think Jack Silvani is a place for him in that forward line. I look at his form when David Teague took over from Brendan Bolton halfway through that 2019 season. He kicked 3 goals against Melbourne playing as the deepest forward. Got up the ground a little bit, had about 18 disposals, I think, that day as well. That was his best game for the club. And he built on that, had a couple of stints through the midfield as well. I remember he tagged Nat Fyfe against Fremantle when Carlton won that late game with Mark Murphy kicking the goal at the death. So he's shown he can play at this level. Probably just needs to add a bit more consistency, but there is a place for him as that sort of 190 centimetre forward who's very difficult to match up on.
I guess the interesting thing from an Essendon perspective too, when talking about Jack Silvani right now, is that he's matched up by Cale Hooker, who's gone back to being a defender, having spent last quarter as a centre-half forward option, and that might be the tale of his story too, I think. of his season, because he might be a Mr. Fix-It, and that's the way his last couple of years have unfolded too. Generally been a key back, but switched forward when necessary, and even won some games off his own boot. Think about the Giants game a couple of years ago. Gold Coast as well. Have been on the end of a late switch, and it was a favourite move of John Worsfold to flick hooker forward and make something happen. I know it was a customary move at the Eagles all those years ago with Adam Hunter, wasn't it?
That's right.
Under John. So he will be one that is an interesting player to watch, and his final year of his contract at the Bombers this year.
Jack Martin unselfishly dishing that one off to Sam Walsh. It's gone about 7 metres, but they've called it a mark. So Sam Walsh has been busy, hasn't probably reached the heights that we know he can reach, but he's done a bit and will be pretty pleased with his output today. This would be a nice little cherry on top of a good performance from him.
Yeah, and he's been a regular goal kicker in the second half of last year as well. 7 out of the last 10 games of the season he kicked goals. He's missed this one, but it is a part of his game that he worked on really hard last year. And how do we hit the scoreboard? We know he loves a goal celebration too. A little bit of the NBA coming out of him.
He was pretty remarkable seeing him celebrate an intra-club goal in that fashion last week.
He certainly did.
Gave it the big one after slotting a couple from a boundary. So we love a player that celebrates a goal, and I think, even though he showed good signs in the first quarter, I think that's why we're disappointed to see Ned Carlton back, because we won't get to see it much in 2021.
Maybe it might be up to Waterman to come up with something, because he has been a real highlight, and it will be a massive talking point among the Essendon faithful after today's game, and as he should be. 4 goals, 3 of them in this last quarter. Looks really comfortable whenever he's around the ball. So
that one just skewing off Liam Jones's boot and out for a throw-in as we tick into the 25th minute of the final term here. Carlton by 21 points at Ikon Park. It was that third quarter which really blew the Bombers out of the water. Zach Williams watching on from the sidelines. He's taken his boots off, so he's done for the day. Pretty exciting performance from him out of the midfield. Adam Saad's shown glimpses for the Blues as well. For the Bombers, out of their new faces, you'd have to be really happy with what Jai Caldwell's done out of the midfield. Peter Wright's kicked a couple of goals. Nick Hines had some dash off halfback as well. So,
and you have to consider Harry Jones, a new face.
There's just a bit
in some respect too
going on here between Tom Cutler and David Cuningham behind play. So Tom Cutler clearly not happy, but you have to think it is something relatively serious if it's happening in the 27th minute of a practice match.
A little bit of a bump there just before the stoppage was unfolding, which he didn't take fondly to.
So there it is, full time here at Ikon Park, and Carlton have theoretically got the points. 14-11-95 to 11-8-74 by 21 points here at Ikon Park. The goal kickers for the Blues, Harry McKay, Paddy Dow and Mark Pittonet, and Zach Fisher all kicking 2 each. Jack Martin, David Cuningham, Jack Newnes, Patrick Cripps, Mark Murphy and Zach Williams adding 1. For the Bombers, the big story, Alec Waterman kicked 4, vying for a spot on Essendon's list as a train-on player. He was perhaps the standout for the Dons. He kicked 4 goals. Harrison Jones kicked 2. Peter Wright kicked 2. Braden Ham, Anthony McDonald, Tipung Woody, and Nick Cox kicked 1 each.
And just from an injury perspective out of the game, Aaron Francis has got his ankle iced up, so had that knock in the third term and came off the ground. Doesn't look to be too serious there. Harry McKay finished the game on the bench with what looked to be a right ankle issue, and hopefully, again, that one doesn't look to be in too much discomfort at the end of this game. I saw Callum Moore, the Carlton hopeful of a sign-on position, back on Carlton's list, has appeared to have a bit of a calf nick, so we'll follow those ones in coming days and keep across both club websites and afl.com.au for all the latest on those players. But it's been a good hit out. I think both clubs would have, as you say, Rolly, gotten a bit out of that game, and hopefully as the players who are missing fold into this lineup over the next couple of weeks ahead of round 1, we'll see both sides at even better strength. So a really good lineup and hit out for both clubs, and we appreciate all the members for tuning in.
Yes, we do. It's been a great occasion. Really exciting to have footy back after, I know you were up in the Queensland hub, Cal, but it feels like forever since I've watched footy at a ground. So it's great to be back, and I'm sure fans are looking forward to seeing some action live as well. And Blues are next in action at Marvel Stadium next Thursday night against St Kilda in the Amy Community Series, and the Bombers are facing Geelong, aren't they?
They are, so we'll keep across that one and see if any of their big names can return for that game. Andy McGrath would be expected to play in that game against the Cats in their final tune-up before round 1 against the Hawks. So promising signs across the board at Ikon Park today.
Thanks for joining us, Carlton and Essendon fans. Hopefully it's a good season for both clubs. Hopefully they can push to return to the finals after a number of years out. So good luck for everything that comes in 2021, and keep tuning back to afl.com.au and the 2 club websites for all the latest throughout the next couple of weeks.